let's take a look now at some more functions in the Remove tab. So we're going to start up a new project, open up our clips, which is going to be the water drops movie, and take our frame offset to 1. Our pixel aspect ratio is 1 as well, so that's HD. And we're going to hit OK. And let's just give this a name. Cool, alright. So let's take a little look at our clip here. Alright, so one of the first things you'll see if we move into the clip tab here, the width is 2048 by 1152. So this is slightly bigger than the HD frames we've been working on previously. This was shot on red, so that's why we've got our 2K image file. Alright. The other thing that you'll notice, let's have a little look here. The whole purpose of this project here is to remove, I like the splash, splash is good, but we need to remove these water dot drops that come along as the glasses fall down. Now this could be quite a laborious and tedious job, so we're going to use Mocha to make it a lot easier. Now it might be easier just for our preview purposes to try and get a bit more contrast in this shot, but obviously we can't do that just with the gamma correction thing up here, so we're going to have to come into our color space in our clip. We're going to change this to log. We've seen this done before now, so change it to log. Take my white up there, bring the black up as well. So we're just cranking up the contrast a little bit here so we can see the drops a little bit easier. We're going to do a remove on this, so we've got to do two things as we did before. We need to create a let's go to our track. So we need to create a background plate, and we need to create shapes for the things that we want to remove, so the drops here. So let's start with our background plate first. Let's come in here, just going to select that there. Here we go. Okay, so we've got something that's standing in for our background here. Of course, as the glasses fall down, it's all going to get a little bit trickier here. So what I'm going to do is just add another shape in here. So it's just adding a spline into our layer. So that we look at the mask there, or the matte there. We have actually cut that out from what we're going to be tracking. Background track. Okay. And let's come off here. We only need translation. We only need small motion because it's a locked off shot. It's meant to be no motion in it at all. Cool, so that's fine. So let's track that through. Okay, I'm going to stop that there because I want to just show you something else of that a little bit later. So let's turn the tracking off on that, turn the background track off there. Let's find a water drop. So we're going to track this one here. So I'm going to take it right down to near the end. There we go. Cool, so create a new layer. I'm going to use the X-spline. Keep it fairly loose. And I only want translation and scale going on there, so I just want to make sure that this is covered. Drop one track. Cool, everything else is fine. Let's track that backwards. Shouldn't be an issue. We'll stop that there. Okay. Okay, cool. So now we've got our drop selected. Let's come to our remove tab over here and let's take a look. All right, before we do anything else here, we need to come in, go back to our clip and reset this to how we want our rendered files to look. Because if I'd have kept that in log as we had before, then all of our render files are going to be rendered out with this weird brightness and contrast values. So we actually want to render it out how it's going to look, or how we want to keep it there. So cool. All right. So I've got my drop one track turned on. The action cog is turned on there. Let's look at the search range here. Frames before and after. I'm going to reduce this down. And I'm going to leave everything else off for the time being, set to the original state, simply because it's going to be faster to render out there. Alright, so why has that not done anything? Well, the thing is, we've performed a track on our foreground layer, but the track on our background layer, we can see here, is still incomplete. So let's come back into our track. Turn the tracking on the background layer again, and let's just watch that through. Okay, cool. So let's go back to our drop, come back into our remove, keep everything else exactly as it was, hit render again, and you can still see that nothing's changed. Well, remember we've still got our spline here that's causing an issue. So let's delete that spline. We've still got our main spline happening there. Come back into our track. See what happens now. Boom, it's gone. Cool, so we have to remember these two things. So you just got to remember, we do need to have a background track for it to work properly and do the remove properly, because it needs that information about what is the background and what isn't the background. And the other thing to remember is that multiple splines on the same layer will cut each other out. So if you have multiple splines overlapping, at that point, then that won't be included in the calculation for the remove. So, you know, we have to make sure that the background is actually the background that we need it to be. So with that being said, let's track this forward a little bit and see what we get. Cool, and that's working out pretty good, right up until the bit where we stop tracking it. So I'm happy with that there. So let's track another drop, shall we? Let's take... Actually, let's take this drop here. So we'll come into our track again. And let's just use the default settings here. I'm going to keep shear turned on because the shape actually does change a little bit. And let's just track that backwards. I don't mind the track being a bit wobbly. There we go. We've just got everything that I needed there. Yeah, as I was saying, I don't mind the track being a little bit wobbly because let's turn that to small motion. Yeah, so as I was saying, I don't mind the track being a little bit wobbly so long as our shape is covered there, which it is, so that's fine. So let's come to remove now, and we'll do the same thing as we did for the previous remove. We'll change our input clip to remove water drops, and let's take a look at that. So we're bringing this in, which has already taken out the first water drop, and using that as our input clip. Come to our output, and let's call this remove drops 2. Now what I'd probably do with this particular shot is actually track and remove multiple shapes simultaneously, but for the sake of this, I'll leave it there. And this is going to remove fine as well, pretty much that the whole thing. Let's see if we can sort of throw it into a bit of trouble. Here, I'm actually gonna set it up so that we'll get a result that I'm looking for, which is a bad result, by the way, because I want to show you another feature. So I'm going to turn the number of frames before to 0 and the frames after to 9, and let's just see what we can get here if I render this one out. Okay, obviously I haven't rendered this particular frame, so let's choose a different input clip for this one, and let's just render that. Cool, okay, there. That's exactly what I wanted. So the before and after of this is tiny. We haven't given it the data that it needs to perform the remove. Now, obviously this isn't a real world situation, because if it was, all I do is just turn these frames up here and then re-render, and that should render out fine. But I want to show you what's going to happen in a situation where it still stubbornly refuses to work. I want to show you the idea of the clean plate. So a clean plate, let's zoom out a little bit. That the keyboard shortcut for zooming out to fit to the window is the asterisk on the number pad. If you want to zoom in to 100% of your source, that's the key next to it. That's the slash on the number pad. Cool, yeah, so a clean plate is basically a frame where all of the things that you want to remove have already been removed. So you can either take that out into, take a regular frame out into Photoshop and paint all that up yourself and remove the objects, and then bring that back in. Or what we can also do is we can generate our own clean plate directly within Mocha Pro. So I'm going to take a frame here which has no water drops on it at all. I could actually take one of the first frames if I was doing this properly, but I want to take this frame here just to show you that, you know, we are working on an internally created clean plate. Come into my drop 2 here and come down to my clean plates here. So we've got the regular drop down menu where we can decide which file is going to be our clean plate. So we can choose from one that's already been imported or created, or we can import a file of our own. But I'm just going to hit create here, and that's now come in, created a clean plate and linked that to the input. So let's come back to my clip that I want to remove. And not do anything else. And I'm just going to hit render here. And nothing changes. If anything, it's actually worse than the result we had before. So why is that? Well, let's actually take a look at our clean plate in here. So here's the problem, is that all the frames are not rendered except for, we come closer to it. Where is it? There we go. Except for the frame that we took out as our clean plate. But we have rendered our file to the disk. So let's take a look at that. So we'll come into our results. And there's our clean plate there, rendered out as a TIFF file. Alright, so let's quickly fix that. Let's come down into our clean plate here, and I'm just going to edit this here. And when I hit edit, it brings up a list of all of the clean plates that we have associated with this particular project. Now at the moment we only have the one that we've just created, and that's currently linked to frame 13. So we can add more frames in there if we want to, but if we want to use this one frame across the entire project, we'll change our frame number to all. That's capital ALL. Hit OK. Now let's have a look. Now it's being used across the entire range. Alright, so let's come back. Let's come back to our water drops. Come back to our drop 2 track here. I haven't changed any of the other settings. Hit render again. Boom, gone. So that's now using the clean plate to render out that particular frame here. Just going to test something with the edge softness here as well. I'm just going to bring the edge width out here a little bit. And hit render again. And you can see that it can, if we use the edge width on the mat here, we can also subtly blend in our remove if we need to, which in this particular case is definitely going to be a bonus. Well, let's render that forwards quickly. And we can see we've rendered out that frame there. All right, so let's get all this working properly as it should do. Let's come in here. Let's render both those drops out at once. So I'm going to change my input clip here to water drops and my output to remove water drops, which is exactly the same as the other clip. So input clip water drops, output remove water drops. You can hit render on that, and you'll notice that only one of those disappears. Now what's the problem there? Let's take a look at our clean plate water drops. Well, that's also disappeared into the ether as well when we don't click on retain saved cache. So what we're going to have to do here is come in. We've still got it in here, and it's just that our frame number has been reset to 1. So we just hit that to all. We're back in business again. So let's hit render one more time, not changing any other stuff. Both of our drops have been removed. So that takes a quick look at the basics of the clean plate, plus showing you some of the problems that you might have to deal with when you are working in the remove module. So that includes remembering to clean up your splines if you've used any extra splines to help out on the tracking, and also how we deal with the hierarchy of the input and output clips there. And we also took a very brief look into something that we'll explore later in the next exercise, which is dealing with the edge width just to smooth things in as we're removing them. So dealing with just edge width in a mats will also smooth the results in remove. All right, well that's it for now. Let's come back in the next exercise and we'll take a look at some of the other stuff that we haven't looked at. We'll be looking at multiple clean plates, we'll be looking at 3D compensation and flood fill, as well as getting our heads around quite a complex remove. So I'll see you in the next exercise.